Welcome to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. I'm your host, Curtis Gibbs, and today we are on the road with Dr. Hannah Larson, joining us from Colorado. Hannah, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
This is so fun to have you. You know, we got the chance to do a short real life, real impact together at Colorado State last month, and you got to share with the group that was there live, and I kind of wanted to capture some of the things that you shared with that group for our listeners.
Sounds good. That was fun.
So before we do, tell us a little bit about your story. Where are you at now? What type of vet med are you doing?
Yeah, I'm a 2018 Colorado State graduate. I have lived in Colorado my entire life and actually was able to live at home through all of vet school, which was lovely. I wanted to do large animal. I didn't plan on touching another dog or cat after graduation. So my first job was in rural Southeast Colorado, mixed animal practice. I really loved the community, loved the mix of every animal that walked through the doors. Did a lot more small animal than I ever planned on, but definitely grew that skill set. Then I needed to move back home. So as I was moving back closer, I've done small animal GP, and then I'm currently working as a small animal emergency veterinarian. I've been doing that for about 2 years now.
How's the change to emergency med go? What's that been like?
I loved it a lot more than I thought I would. It is challenging in a whole new way. I felt like I really enjoyed the urgent care emergency cases that would come into a GP and stabilizing them and then shipping them to an ER. So it took a little while to start processing like, okay, well, they already did all the things that I know how to do. So now that it came to me on the other side of this, like, what do I do about that now? But I like the adrenaline. Gotten a little bit to be an adrenaline junkie. I enjoy that. I like the 3 12-hour shifts a week. Gives me a little more time to be at home. So those have been some nice changes.
Yeah, you've kind of done 2 or 3 different styles of vet med since you graduated.
Yep.
Which seems like it'd be cool because it's grown your skill set in new areas. But let's, some of this pod will be, advice for students or advice for people looking to hire. I think we're going to touch on some interesting things like that. But talk to me about that. Like, what have you had to coach yourself up for or get ready for when you're stepping into kind of a new area of vet med that isn't what you thought you would do, or it wasn't what you were doing before?
Yeah, I talked to my best friend about this a lot. Confidence is not something that comes naturally to me in vet school or in veterinary medicine in general. I'm quick to discount what I might know or not know. And there's a whole host of reasons that that's the case. But as I would try each new thing, it was terrifying to go into this next job, not knowing the support staff. I think ER was even more terrifying of like, they expect me to know things and to be able to react quickly. So reminding myself of the things that I do have. I was very well trained. CSU puts a lot of emphasis on client communication, so at least I can talk to people. I know how to work with other support staff. I know how to make them feel comfortable and safe coming to me. So at least I can rely on them to help me with that. And then I've learned to be very open, transparent, and honest about what I do and don't know. So starting a case, especially in the ER, this last job change, I made a list of every topic I didn't feel comfortable with. And we spent my first month working there in between cases, going through each and every one until I felt more comfortable doing that. And then still being willing to be like, yeah, I didn't know. Can you tell me how I should have handled that case better? Like, I felt like I got to this point and just really didn't know what the next step should have been. So I think I've learned to be open. And as I am open about what I don't know, it is incredible the amount of people that want to share and teach you if you don't come across defensive or know-it-all.
Oh, man. I mean, that is solid because and look at there, all of a sudden biblical principles showing up to help you out. Like humility is not necessarily something that, you're a doctor. We expect you to know, like in your, even yourself. Sometimes people kind of just want to front and then go back and look up things on their phone or something. But like you know, have found it valuable to be like, hey, this is a skill or an area that I'm not comfortable with or I don't know, and you're a better doctor because of that.
Yeah, I learned that also really quickly in large animal practice. So if there's any girls listening to this that are wanting to go into large animal, there's all of this stigma about women in vet med in general and women in large animal medicine. And I worked with a lot of cowboys at my first job. And I learned within about one or two of those that if you come up to them and say, hey, you know more about cattle than I will ever know, how am I supposed to help you today? They were so much more easy to work with because I had the knowledge, I had the medical knowledge, but they have so much more life experience. And they've seen thousands more head of cattle than I will ever see in my lifetime. And allowing that to be a partnership made me so much more, I was going to say liked as a vet, but they were so much more willing to work with me because I didn't come in hot as if I knew all the things. We had discussions about why they weren't getting whatever antibiotics they wanted and why they couldn't just treat everything the way they've always treated it. But we actually got to have those discussions because I was willing to listen first. And those relationships grew so much faster than I ever expected. And I was never treated badly because of my gender in those situations because it just wasn't a part of the conversation for either of us.
Wow, that partnership. I mean, it lowers those defensive shields probably for both of you, right? And
Yes.
you're
Yes.
you're honoring and valuing their experience, even though they haven't been trained or educated, because some of them might have wished they had that opportunity, but they didn't or whatever. And
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And it gave me a lot more leeway to make mistakes because I didn't come in as if I knew everything. So when I did make mistakes or where I didn't know a piece of information, they had so much more grace for me because I had tried very hard to be honest about that from the front. And I think that helped both of us. I had a lot more fulfilling conversations with people and I heard the stories of other new grads and their struggles and I'm so grateful that just wasn't a huge part for me.
We should do a we should do a separate pod of just working with cowboy stories because there's got to be something to that. But we'll get there some other time, Hannah. So speaking of new grads, that was kind of the panel that you were on with Dr. Hendrickson and two of our dear friends there at Colorado State. It was fun seeing all three of you who all happen to be female vets that were up there last month. But you mentioned mistakes. What are some wisdom that you've learned of what to do when you make a mistake and how to process that too? Because that's an unfortunate part of the job that doesn't stay at the clinic when you leave. Those
No,
things can follow you home.
no, it does. I was sharing this last month. I feel like I got a little bit of a crash course in working through mistakes. I failed out of vet school my first year, so I failed a class spring semester, failed the retake final, and was academically dismissed from CSU's vet school program. I will always be so grateful for the opportunity to appeal that decision. I will also owe Dr. Hendrickson for the rest of my life. He was sitting on that panel. He kept them talking until they agreed to give me a second chance. So I am here because somebody believed in me. But it took a lot to go back to class after that. It was really hard to take exams again. It was really hard to sit in lecture halls again. And I realized through that really dark, tough valley that I walked through, how easily it had become for me to put my entire identity and everything that was important about me in the fact that I was a vet student. And I was raised in a Christian home. I know better. I knew that that wasn't what defined me, but it had been so easy to do that just in those 2 short semesters when everybody is passionate about this thing, that grades matter. Everybody got to this point and vet school became everything. And when you fail at something that you've set your identity in, then that there's no other option than that you are a complete failure. So I got a crash course in working through that and where my identity lies and where my value sits through that fall semester coming back after failing out, really sorting through what I believed and why I believed it and watching a God that I loved never walk away, even when it was anger and fury that mostly filled my prayers when I talked to him. So I think those were some really big pieces for me and challenging through the rest of vet school to continue maintaining that right focus that vet school is important and grades are important and I have to be in class because I have to earn this degree, but ultimately that's not who I am. And so I think that process of filtering through what did I do wrong, how can I do it better, and then moving on, it was awful that first time.
Sure.
And then every time since it's just gotten a little bit easier. It is a different type of challenge when that mistake results in either the continuation of an animal suffering or an animal's death. And I've made mistakes both ways in my career. So I was about 6 months out when my medical error landed in the death of the horse. And that was a whole nother okay, so this is a mistake and I can talk about all the ways I need to fix it. But at the end of the day, there's still an animal that suffered because of this. And so I am very fortunate to be surrounded with an incredible support group. So I had emails out to the people that I trusted to walk me through that. I had called my parents on my drive home. I had people praying for my heart. And in the end, I think the way that I've continued to work through this, I guess, and will for the rest of my career, is that to the best of my ability, I did what I could that day. It wasn't enough. I've learned from that mistake. And the next day, the goal is to be the best vet I can be. And I only can be the best I can be. And mistakes are going to continue to happen as long as I don't start sliding my identity back into whether the case is successful or whether the client liked me or whether I'm the top producing vet in the clinic. There still is a foundation of love, support, and grace there that only God can give.
Well, you have your God in order, and He is there. That's number one. But you mentioned, and what is great is, I love that you're honest about, hey, like my prayers were filled with anger and fury during that, because God's okay with that. We can, as something I harp on often, but we can come to God with our real selves. We don't just always have to be raising hands and worshiping and then with acoustic guitar, right? It's not always that. There's real life that happens. But you mentioned something interesting. You said kind of a support group. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, have you kind of been intentional about making sure you have supportive relationships around you, that type of deal?
I have. I think I was going to say it was by chance that they started. I know that that's not how God works. So clearly these were purposeful, but I wasn't as intentional as I should have been at the beginning. I have strong Christian parents that while veterinary medicine may not be something that they are, that they have walked through themselves, they are always on board to listen, care, and support everything that all their kids do. So I am so grateful and blessed to have had people that have shown me what unconditional love looks like. Going into vet school, I joined the CVF group, and that's led by Dr. Hendrickson at CSU. And he was the associate dean when I failed out of first year. He was the hospital director for a while when I was third year. He's been an equine surgeon my entire that time there. He is very intentional in supporting me, to challenge me when I needed to work on something, to support me and encourage me when I felt like I just wasn't enough. Him and his wife, Amy, have been such strong supporters of me in general that when that horse was dead, I didn't even question the response I was going to get from him. I knew it was going to be encouragement. I knew it was going to be honest. I knew there was some medical background there, but I knew I was going to get somebody, I thought, emailing me back. He actually called me about 10 minutes after that email went through, of just walking through like, hey, I've also made mistakes. Like, are you okay? Can I pray with you? Are you safe right now? Are you with somebody that cares about you? And I think that was so incredibly valuable to make me feel loved and like I hadn't disappointed somebody that I would rather never disappoint. And then I have a best friend who is also a veterinarian, was there last month, but Emily is about an hour away. We have different stories of how we've gotten to vet med. We've had different experiences, but it is such a blessing to have a friend who shares the two most important things in my life in common with me. So whether we're talking about cases or whether we're talking about how challenging this was or how challenging life is, there is such an amount of encouragement and discipleship and mentorship that happens both ways for us, to encourage each other to walk out our faith while dealing with the day-to-day life as a vet.
Yeah. Yeah. Y'all were fun on that panel too. Emily's, yeah, all three of y'all. That was such a good time. Ed's out there as well. Well, speaking to grads and speaking to that panel, we had a fun time at our kind of one night real life, real impact experience there. But I think you shared some interesting things, all three of you. But I've got you today on kind of like what you looked for when you were kind of looking for your first jobs. And, here we are in the spring, some grads have committed, some are looking, some of the third years are looking. That's how soon they commit. Now, what are some of your thoughts? What are some of your advice to like, hey, like, here's some ways to pick a good place to work, and here's what I look for.
Yeah, I made a list of my non-negotiables. So for me, there was a geographical range where I was willing to leave, how far away I was willing to leave from my family. So that was one of the things I literally didn't look for jobs outside that range. I did have the non-negotiable of mixed animal. Obviously, I wanted large, but I was willing to do some small animal as long as there's a lot of large animal there. And then I was looking for a practice that had an associate before. I didn't want to be the first associate to a boss that had been on his own. I wanted somebody who had worked with a new graduate before. So those are my non-negotiables. I have friends who included things like, I don't ever want to live farther than 20 minutes from a beach. I don't want to deal with parasites. I want to live in Alaska, like whatever it is that are I will not compromise this. And then I literally didn't look at jobs outside that. And I think that was a good starting place for me. I ended up working, all three of my supervisors, my first two bosses, and my current medical director are all Christians. So I've seen that happen in a variety of ways. That being said, that actually didn't make the list of non-negotiables for me. I felt like that wasn't the most important piece because my faith was going to stay the same regardless of what I had ahead of me.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense, and like for some people, it's like they want that. For some people, they're like, look, my team or my staff or whatever that I'll be working with will be my mission field in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So, you can look at it certainly both ways on what what's going to be a good fit for someone. So, well, I also think, a cool part of your journey, and you alluded to it, but I hope it's been good for your faith and growth. But you have a fun story about going to real life, real impact, which we just did, and you also spoke at in when it was hosted by CSU, and I think that was the COVID year, right? Right before everything shut down, we happened to be there.
Yep. I think I've spoken 2020, 2023, and then this last year, 2026. So I started going to CVF just because it said Bible study for vet students. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, let's do that. The CSU CVF group is just such a warm, welcoming experience. They feed you, which also keeps vet students coming back, right?
That's a win. Yep.
That's a huge thing. And then there's real live, honest, transparent Bible study that happens afterwards as we just discuss through passages. So I felt like I was getting spiritually fed. Started that fall of first year, and then that spring in 2014, CSU actually hosted Real Life, Real Impact. I had no clue what that was. Everybody was like, "Oh, we're gonna go to this thing," and I was like, "All right, well, let's go to the thing." And that was the first time I had been surrounded by that many professionals who also had faith as their first priority. And that was really eye-opening to me that there's that many people in the world that hold these two things so close to their heart. They have the same two priorities that I do. And to be surrounded by them for a weekend was just absolutely incredible. I learned a lot. I felt like I was filled to overflowing that that weekend, and that actually is where I met my best friend. So that's where Emily and I connected. We've been connected ever since. So that obviously will always hold a very special place in my heart. But yeah, I figured if this was what one weekend could do, then I was going to make it a priority and make it a goal to go every year. So every year since then, throughout vet school, we picked based on which weekend worked the best. Sometimes that turned out really well. So I drove out to Manhattan, Kansas the next year. It was great. The next year after that, we flew to New York, a weekend where we had 2 tests on Friday, flew out on Friday night, and then came back to 3 exams the next week. So we were studying Sunday in the airport. Probably not the best decision I'd ever made. But both myself and my classmate Liz that went, we both passed all of those exams. God uses time that you donate, that you are willing to give him. He redeems that. So those weekends just became the touch point of hitting pause on all of the other chaos and noise and everything else that was going on, and focusing back on what the most important thing was, being encouraged by the people around the country who were working to be Christians in their field, in their veterinary medicine field. Having people pray over the students. I don't know that I've ever experienced the incredible power that is in a room filled with people that are praying for you to succeed, that have never met you before. So that was really cool to experience as a student, and I wanted to give that back as a professional. So I've kept going. I'm still enjoying these real life full impacts. They are still such a weekend of peace. I didn't let study, so I don't let work interfere with them. And going wherever the weekend fits the best. So I've been to a couple different locations. I've never walked away disappointed. It's just been such an encouragement. It's truly real life, and the impact it's had on my life has been significant.
I love it. And your story fits with what I tell students. So you're doing a good job making me not a liar. In that I've never heard anybody say, "Gee, I wish I'd stayed home. I wish I had studied more." And so you're
Yes.
you're highlighting that clip. In fact, this year, I mean, not only are many experience it at Colorado State, you have kind of real life, real impact night that we're kind of piloting. Tried that out this year there, since they're so geographically removed from everybody else. But you went to the event at LSU, right? So
Did.
you got New York, you got K State in the middle of the country, Colorado, obviously. So where else have you been? That's fun. Have you made it to any of the Northwest or?
We have been, let's see, I've gone to CSU, Kansas, New York. I went to Arizona. I think that was my 4th year. That was the first year they had real life, real impact down there. So the ratio was different, which was kind of fun. There was a lot more vets to students. So that was kind of fun. I got a lot of conversations. I've gone to Oklahoma. I've been to Louisiana twice now.
Okay.
So I think that was it. I was making a list the other day. I know that I know real life will impact themes are prayed over and planned very long in advance, but it is truly a God thing how well they fit each year of my life, how well they fit. So that's been fun to see. But this last one was gratitude, and obviously we had talked earlier. I was able to pay off my student loans, so to walk into LSU's gratitude real life real impact event, I just think it hit home how many things God has put in my life the last 8 years that led to a paid in full designation on my student loans, and what a small thing that is compared to how much He has done in my life in general. So this year is no exception of how well this theme has fit what's going on in my world as well.
Yeah, we need like a Dave Ramsey scream insert here, right? So that's, yeah. When you were at CSU, you had to leave to work a night shift.
Yes.
And so, and you were like 2 shifts away, so
Yeah.
I got to tell the students that. I was like, by the way, she's, in 2 days or whatever, like amazing. So congratulations on that. That's awesome. Well, Hannah, this is so good. We're gonna have to circle back around and do cowboy stories one of these days here. maybe get Emily on here too, because she's just so fun and the chemistry is so fun. But yeah, what is, let me just ask you this too. We used to, sometimes ask two or three questions at the end, and I always at least like to bring one of those back. Let me bring this one back to you. When did you know you wanted to be a vet? How'd you know that?
I had decided most of my life I was going to be a doctor, a dentist, a vet, or a stay-at-home mom. And those were always just the top four things. And got my first cavity, so, dentist off the list. But
Sure.
the year I turned 14, we raised dairy goats, and we have for many years. The summer I turned 14, I worked for a veterinarian out of Oregon for a week to buy a goat for half the price that she was asking. And I watched this woman and the way that she interacted with animals, the way people asked her opinion on how to best care for these high production show value animals. And I decided I wanted to be just like that. I wanted to have that level of care and commitment to animals. And my super wise parents were like, that's very cute. You should spend some time shadowing our vet to see if this is actually a thing you want to do. So they made the commitment to drive me over an hour to where our vet was located multiple times over the next couple of years, and just have me shadow her on her mobile calls with large animal and in the clinic. And everything that I saw, the more I loved it. I think for me, veterinary medicine is such an incredible gift where we marry the art of client communication and caring for the people in our world with the incredible idea of science. I mean, it's truly mind blowing, some of the things that we know, how they work, how they're put together, how medications or even just fluids are going to change something. So I think science is fascinating. And then you get to add that to caring for the people in the world around you. So for me, I can't imagine a career that would give me any other, this much satisfaction any other way.
Cheers to that. That's awesome. All right. Two last questions. And they're both going to be, but we've been doing advice for students. We'll end with one last thought for students, but we're going to speak to those that are on the hiring side of things. Because, so and maybe you've been on that side or you've been helping to interview people here and there, but you've certainly joined different staffs. What do the people on that side of the ledger need to do? What do they need to know to welcome a new student in, welcome a new associate to the clinic? What is something that those that are on the hiring side of things need from your perspective?
I think mentorship has become such a buzzword the last probably decade plus, and that looks different to different people. So when you're looking to hire a new grad, figuring out the way they're going to learn the best and being willing to support them for the next, forever would be great. But especially in those first weeks to months when they're learning and struggling, making it a very intentional point to check in with them, not just after a good or a bad case, but on a regular basis, and just ask them, like, how did this week go? Did you have questions that came up that you didn't understand? Is this something we need to talk about? Is this a process that you're missing, or you just struggled with this case? I think that the people that have had the most impact in my world were the ones that showed up every time, not just when a case had gone sideways or when a client was upset. They were the ones that were making sure I was learning on the in-between days as well. So I think that was a really big key to me. I know people have official mentorships and all of the time, and this is how you're going to learn, this is the cases you're going to do. And that didn't seem to really work in either the clinics I had, because we saw what came in. But knowing I had the full access to come with any question at any time, it didn't necessarily mean I had help coming in to see the case with me, but at least a phone call away, I got some experience and some recommendations. That was pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, you think, okay, we can structure this thing, but then the real life hits, right? So it's almost like you mentioned the science of vet med, but there's an art of vet med. So there's probably an art and a science to mentorship too, both.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Hannah, one last thing you'd love to just leave with any of our students listening here, whether it be about how to start out well or looking for jobs, just I'll let you have one last encouraging word to any students out there.
I think it's a little bit of a two-part for me. So we talk about work-life balance, and we talk about how that's going to happen when you graduate. I would challenge you that happens in vet school as well. So when you're planning your week, when you're paying attention to your exams, when you're studying for everything that you have coming up, work-life balance doesn't just happen unless you make that a priority. So if it's church on Sunday morning, if it's Bible study, whatever night that is, whatever it takes that your identity, your value, your humanness outside of veterinary medicine exists, those things still need to be blocked into your schedule with the same level of commitment you're putting your classes in. And with that, there is so much joy in veterinary medicine. We have been inundated with the negatives. We hear all the terrible things that happen. We talk about the clients, we talk about the losses, but there's so much joy and excitement. So with that work-life balance, make sure you're paying attention to where the joy is showing up. If you look for it, if you're watching for it, it is unmistakable. And it takes a little bit of intentionality, but it will change your world.
That's awesome. Well, Hannah, thank you for all you do. Thank you for coming to so many real life real impacts in a row. And as a student, supporting them, but now as a veterinarian, speaking at them and just showing up and having presence and relationship. And that is so key to, others, but I think it's been key to your story and your journey, and I think I really appreciate that and appreciate your vulnerability, sharing with everybody on, hey, how to learn and how to grow. That's sometimes not easy for people, but it's a biblical principle, humility, right? And
yes,
so
yes.
So thanks for showing us that and showing us just generally how to live life well at the intersection of faith and vet med. Truly two roads crossing. Thanks, Dr. Larson.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you are blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.